All right, hey, what's up, Eric? I just wanted to quickly get my part of the project done for this week's segment. I identified the archetypes in Script A of Cell Block Z, so I'm just gonna jump right in. Um, Ted to me would be or would demonstrate the higher self archetype because he eventually says no to the job when he sees that the man who is not yet a zombie is being wronged and he's shouldn't be in the cell. He finds out that there's bad stuff going on that the warden is not making people aware of and then holding them hostage basically until they're a zombie. Um, he takes off his badge to show that he doesn't want to be part of the system anymore. So it's like the difference between what he could have been if he would have left the badge on and been a part of that bad stuff that was going on, or if he takes it off and shows his individuality as a character and finds his higher self. That brings me to the man who is not yet a zombie. To me, I think he's the Herald. Um, I say this because he presents Ted with a choice. He announces a need for change because he was calling Ted from his cell, like asking for help. And he shows that he's not bad. So Ted has to choose between, sticking with the system, like I said earlier, and leaving the badge on, or taking it off and becoming something more. Um, the next archetype that I found was a pretty simple one because it's literally in the name of the archetype, the Threshold Guardians, which would be the guards. Uh, Upon entering the prison, like you automatically see these guards. They're the henchmen of the warden, and they are the ones who enforce the laws that the warden kind of sets in place. They are very much the foxes in the bear fox symbiotic relationship. The bear or the warden doesn't really get involved unless the guards or the foxes kind of stir or make a racket or show that there's a need for the warden to be involved. Um, that brings me to the warden. I think the warden was two archetypes. I think he was a shapeshifter because he started out as Ted's ally, showing him the lay of the land. He's the respectful authority figure. He's Ted's boss, so you kind of have to show him some respect. But then he quickly changes into the shadow or the villain archetype because when Ted takes off his badge, that doesn't please the warden. He doesn't want bad stuff getting out about the prison. So obviously he's gonna try and lock Ted up forever until he's a zombie. And then actually it's kind of funny because the warden literally shapeshifts into a zombie at the end. So I thought that was kind of cool. So yeah.
What's up, Eric? My name is Levi Stroop. I'm going to be talking about Section 2 for the script Cell Block Z. In Script A, um, we start out with Ted, our hero. Um, he meets the Warden first thing. The Warden is an ally until Ted doesn't do what he wants. Then he shapeshifts into the Shadow. Then he meets, well, that shapeshifting is caused by a man who was our herald, which causes Ted to kind of turn his thoughts around and go against the warden. Then we have the guards, who are Threshold Guardians. They detain Ted and then eventually ally with him after he infects the warden. They throw the warden in, they let him out because he has the antidote, or he's taking the antidote. Um, then in script B, we have pretty much the same list of characters. Ted, hero, the warden, he's the same in this story as he is in the other one. Um, the former, or the man, now becomes former guard. So we know that he was a guard before, and there was a reason he was thrown into the cell. It's not just some random man in a cell with a bunch of zombies around. Um, he is our herald now, and he's also eventually an ally. Um, we have the guards that are still Threshold Guardians. They detain Ted, but instead of allying with him, he kind of runs over him and escapes. Then we have the Giant, which is also an ally. He's nameless, but he's important. Um, it changes the story. Instead of Ted biting the warden, drinking the antidote, then the guards allying with him, he runs over the guards, um, goes and finds the former guard, goes and finds the giant, and then goes to the warden's office. So instead of the warden dying in a cell, or being infected and dying in a cell, they go to his office, get the antidote, and then the giant kills him, I'm assuming. So that's the major turning points in the story. Major differences based on character. That's it.
Hi Eric, it's Danny, and I had step 4, which is you can take the 2 scripts and compare and contrast them, saying Fields' professional, personal, and private components, and using your public, personal, and private components, and comparing the 2 scripts and where each of them falls. We'll start with Fields, and we're going to start with script A. For script A, I thought the private component was pretty. It's very clear that Ted has a child and a wife who he loves very much. He talks to them on the phone. For public, for script B, Ted is a little more upfront in public. He stands up for himself quicker, and when he's uncomfortable with something, he's very clear off the bat, saying, no, I'm not going to do this, and that, I think, helps him out when he's around other characters, when he's trying to escape later in the story. For personal, we get into the relationship he has now with his new boss and this new job and these new inmates, and him feeling passion for them and also teaming up with them as they try to escape the prison once he eventually becomes captured, once he decides to quit his job.
There are multiple archetypes in the script Cellblock Z. However, the 3 that I'm choosing to focus on are the hero, ally, and shadow. So our hero is Ted, the ally is represented by prison guards, and the shadow archetype is our good friend, the warden. So Ted shows up in the first quarter of the story, as does the warden. However, we don't fully realize the warden is the shadow archetype until the second quarter. And by the third quarter, there's no doubt that the warden is the shadow. And the allies don't arrive until the very final quarter of this script. So as heard in the lecture, there's a semi-typical order for the appearances of archetypes in stories, and the hero appears in the first quarter as you would expect. Since your hero is typically your protagonist, you need to know who the hero is right off the bat, which is why he appears immediately. The shadow also appears where you would expect him to, at the beginning of the second quarter as well as the beginning of the third quarter of the script. However, the warden doesn't really begin to take the full form of the shadow until the second quarter, and by the beginning of the third quarter we know for a fact that he is the shadow due to his unfair, inhumane treatment of his undead inmates, as well as his capturing and infection of Ted. So the allies don't appear where you expect them to, unlike the hero and the shadow. The allies typically appear in the second and third quarter of a story, but in Cellblock Z, they don't appear until the very last quarter. And the reason for this is the sudden turn of events that happens in the story. Until Ted has leverage over the warden, the ally has no reason to be his ally, because the ally is the prison guards. So until Ted puts the warden in a bad spot, the prison guards have no reason to be on his side, which is why they don't become his ally until the very final pages, which is when Ted finally gets leverage over the warden. So the ally shows up later than normal, but better late than never.